You're listening to Justice Interrupted, the podcast where we expose the stories of injustice buried in the shadows of the legal system. I'm your host, Dylan, and today's episode is one that speaks to the heart of everything we stand for here. It's the story of Terrence Cumber convicted not because he committed a crime, but because he survived one. Right now, he's sitting in a prison cell, sentenced to life for defending himself and his brother. Not because the law says he was wrong, but because the system refused to protect him, and it's time he knew the truth. You know, when we talk about cases like this, it's easy to get caught up in the legal language, words like felony murder, self-defense, due process. But behind all of that is a human being, and that human being is Terrence Cumber. Let me tell you a little bit about Terrence that I read. He's always been about protecting the people he loves, not harming them. A quiet protector, a man who steps up not because he wants recognition, but because he believes it's the right thing to do. He's a devoted brother, a loyal friend. And since being incarcerated, he's become a father again, a role he cherishes more than anything else. He wasn't running with gangs. He wasn't out looking for fights. He held a job. He had plans. And the truth is, anyone who's ever met Terrence will tell you he doesn't have a violent bone in his body. The incident that led to his conviction, that wasn't Hui Island. That was survival. That was instinct. That was protecting his brother. This podcast isn't just about getting a retrial. It's about reminding the world who Terrence is. A good man. A family man. A man who should be home. And if you think it's just me saying this, it's not. Listen to what members of the community have said about Terrence. These are real words from real people who've stood by him since day one. If this is what happens when you try to walk away from a fight and protect your brother, then what hope do the rest of us have? Terrence did what any of us would have done. He shouldn't be in prison. He should be home. This isn't just a legal case. It's a story about a good man being punished for surviving. Terrence's name deserves to be cleared. His character speaks louder than any courtroom transcript ever could. Let me take a minute to tell you what really happened that night, because if you're just hearing headlines or worse, hearing nothing at all, you're missing the truth. Terrence wasn't out looking for trouble. He was at a nightclub with his brother, trying to enjoy a regular night. But things changed quickly. He was shoved out of nowhere by a man with a history of violence. But Terrence didn't fight back. He walked away. He stepped outside. Now, here's where everything goes sideways. That same man, the same aggressor, comes back. This time, he brings backup. Multiple people. It's not just words anymore, it's threats. It's intimidation. What would you do? Terrence reacted. He acted to protect his brother, to protect himself in that split-second, chaotic moment. He didn't go looking for violence. He tried to avoid it. But when it came to him at his brother's car, he responded the only way anyone would with instinct. And under Georgia law, that's not murder. That's self-defense. Georgia's self-defense law, OCGA, Part G sets tres vintian, clearly states, a person is justified in threatening or using force against another when and to the extent that he or she reasonably believes that such threat or force is necessary to defend himself or herself or a third person against the other's imminent use of unlawful force. Terrence's actions that night fell squarely under this law. The person he defended against was the aggressor. That's not speculation. Even the state admitted that. There was no malice, no intent, no premeditation. The jury saw that too. They acquitted him of malice murder. But somehow, they still convicted him of felony murder. How does that add up? How do you admit someone wasn't acting with intent to kill but still sentence them to life in prison? This wasn't justice. This was a system looking for someone to blame, and Terrence got caught in the middle. Let's get into the legal side of this because it's important you understand just how badly this case was mishandled. The law in Georgia supports what Terrence did. The state's justification statute says clearly that when someone uses force, even deadly force, to stop an imminent threat, and they're not the aggressor, it's not a crime. That's OCGA. برصاش السادس عشر من مارس 2021. The prosecutor even admitted that the deceased was the aggressor. So why is Terrence in prison? Terrence's trial attorney didn't file a motion for immunity under Georgia's Stand Your Ground law, OCGA. Section 16324.2. That's a huge deal. That motion could have triggered a hearing before the trial ever began to determine if Terrence acted in lawful self-defense. If the court agreed, the case could have been dismissed entirely. But Terrence never got that chance. Not only that, the attorney didn't call a single defense witness. Not one. There were people ready to testify about Terrence's character, about what actually happened that night, and about the threats he faced. Those voices never made it to the jury. His voice, the only one that could have told the jury what he truly felt in that moment, was never heard. Add to that, the jury was pulled from the same county where the incident happened. A county filled with protests, threats, gang intimidation, and massive public pressure. That's not a fair jury pool. That's not impartial. That's not justice. If we let this slide, what message are we sending? That Georgia's Stand Your Ground law is selective? That justice depends on the zip code you're tried in? We can't accept that. Not now. Not ever. This isn't just a legal error. This is a failure of justice at every level, from the courtroom to the community. A judge recused himself. Threats were made against Terrence and his family. The venue wasn't changed. And the media? Silent. Terrence isn't a gang member. He's not a killer. He's a man who stood by his brother and did what many of us would have done if someone we love was getting jumped. Now he's sitting behind bars for the rest of his life because of a botched trial, biased venue, and legal negligence. Terrence, if you're listening, you are not forgotten. We see you, we love you, and we are fighting for you every single day. To the thousands who've stood beside him, thank you. Every signature, every share, every phone call matters. If you want to take action, you can sign the petition for a retrial in the case of Terrence Cumber. Justice requires a second look over at change.org. Just search for that title and add your name. It's one more way to make sure Terrence's voice is heard. This fight isn't over, not by a long shot. Terrence's story reminds us that justice isn't always served in the courtroom. Sometimes it has to be demanded by the people. We all have a role to play. Share this episode, talk about it, and reach out to your local leaders. We owe it to Terrence, to his family, and to every person who's ever stood up to protect themselves. You're not just supporting a petition, you're standing up for what's right. This is Justice Interrupted. I'm Dylan. And today, we stood for Terrence Cumber.